Speak against the confidence motion moved by the Prime Minister in his government yesterday. Sir, now more than ever what New Zealand needs is a government for the many, not a government for the few. And the speech we heard yesterday from John Key was all about governing for the few in our country at the very expense of the many. We need a Labour-led government in New Zealand, sir, who can make sure there is a plan for the future in our country, not just a gimmick for tomorrow morning's New Zealand Herald or Dominion Post. We need leaders in this country who understand that prices are going up faster than wages, whatever statistics, dodgy as they may be, the government chooses to put forward. Families in this country know every week when their wages come in, they are being outstripped by the prices that are going up at the supermarket, at the petrol station and in so many other areas where families need to be able to spend money. And when the member for North Shore says it's not true, you know how far out of touch the government has become when they believe that prices are not going up faster than wages. They are, and you ask anyone in a supermarket, they will tell you that that is true. It is absolutely true. And Hekia Parata, who stood in the Mana by-election, who was all in favour of low and middle income families just in November, within 6 weeks of being in Cabinet, she now says that it's untrue that prices are going up faster than wages, but people listening to this debate now know it instinctively. It is true in their EFTPOS accounts, it is true in their cheque accounts, and it is true as they struggle to pay off the credit card which they're having to put the groceries on. It is staggering how out of touch this government has become. We need higher incomes and better jobs in New Zealand, and we need to put children at the centre of our social policy, not re-election of the Prime Minister at the central part of what government policy is about. We do not need a government that's cutting the social wage like this government is doing and making a mockery of the Kiwi idea that we should all be able to get a fair go. What is clear in this debate and from the Prime Minister's speech yesterday is that after 9 years in opposition and 2 years in government, this party over there has no plan for what to do with and for New Zealand. The results are in. Having no plan has failed. On the key social and economic indicators that people actually know are real for their lives, not opinion poll results, unemployment figures, wage increase figures, cost of living pressures, on those economic and social indicators, having no plan has failed our country and it is failing our people. Stumbling from gimmick to gimmick might have got the government through the first 2 years, but it won't get them through this year, sir. We need a government for all of the people. And in fact, the only ideas that are in the government's plan yesterday are either more gimmicks or ideas that go back to the crypt, back to the idea that we should sell off our assets one more time, just in case we weren't totally convinced of the failure doing it the first time around. It pays to have a memory like an elephant when it comes to our country's assets, sir, and over there they have forgotten just what a disaster these things were. And if I hear Dr Mappa speak up, no wonder he's retiring. He's embarrassed about being part of a government without a plan. He thinks it's a disaster. I listened to the Prime Minister tell us why asset sales would be a good idea. Apparently Kiwi mums and dads could then own it. I thought every single Kiwi mum and dad owned it, and every brother and sister and auntie and uncle and grandma and grandpa and cousin, every single person in this country owned it. But he was the killer. John Key said the Air New Zealand model was what we should base our assets on because that gave you the best of both worlds. Well, who was the party that opposed the buyback of Air New Zealand? It was the National Party. The National Party fought tooth and nail against the buyback of Air New Zealand here in this Parliament. And it turns out, sir, that if you're prepared to wait just 7 years, they can tell you whether or not they're in favour of buying back an asset. Problem is you've got to check in for your flight slightly before 7 years. You've got to check in on the flight 15 minutes before you go. Government's about making tough decisions. And when that tough decision was there, the National Party opposed the buyback of Air New Zealand. Today, of course, just stop and wait. 7 years, that's how long it takes the Conservative forces in New Zealand to catch up to say that gives you the best of both worlds, sir. We're now told that having spent 2 years making appalling choices for our country and for our people, we're now told that we're back to Tina. Tina, there is no alternative. And speaker after speaker over there gets up and says, we have to do this because we're borrowing money, we've made all these bad decisions, the economy's in the cart, now we have to carry on with our economic and social decisions. They say, Tina, well, sir, this is New Zealand, this is Aotearoa, and the Labour Party says in this election campaign, Tama, there are many alternatives, and the alternatives being put out by Phil Goff, Annie King and the Labour team are the sorts of things that can make a major difference to the lives of New Zealanders up and down this country. Because we can now see the effect of having no plan at all. First of all, sir, we were going to be the international hub for financial centres. That was going to be the first thing we were going to be. That sort of fell apart. And in fact, the last time we had John Key talking about Ireland, he said we should model New Zealand after Ireland. That's what he said. Went up and down and said we should be the Celtic tiger of the South Pacific. And of course, then the National Party MPs got up, as they do, unthinkingly, and repeated all those lines from the research unit that John Key said. We were challenged as a Labour government to make sure we were like Ireland, follow the Irish model. Now I sit here in this debate and listen to the same MPs, or a few new ones who know nothing about political history, get up and say, oh, we can't run New Zealand like Ireland. That would be a disaster. We'd be going to hell in a handbasket, in a handcart, if we followed Ireland. And yet if we'd followed the National Party, that's exactly what they said should happen. Then it was going to be a cycleway. We were going to cycle our way to success. Well, that has been a complete disaster. So now our economic recovery is based on the brand new idea of privatisation. The idea never heard of before. We're going to privatise our way to success. That's going to stop all the problems that we have in our country, and power bills are going to go down because we're going to sell power companies. Yeah, right. There's not a single person who can honestly say they believe power prices will be lower for families and pensioners as a result of privatising our power companies. And this is absolutely a ridiculous thing that they are saying. We're listening to them over there saying that taxes are a major issue for the campaign. In fact, this is a party opposite that reduced the entire economic debate in our country simply being down to one of being taxes. And they cut taxes more than we could afford as a country. And now we're borrowing money because of their decisions. You see, 18 months ago, I used to listen to the same speech 58 times over when they complained about borrowing $250 million a week. That was a terrible figure. Nothing more could be done in New Zealand because we were borrowing $250 million a week. Now it's $300 million a week. That's $2.5 billion extra a year. What's the difference? The tax cuts that the National Party put in place that we could not afford. And now they say, oh, $300 million's the ceiling. We can't afford any more than that. And as this economy continues to go down the gurgler, we're going to have to borrow more because of their decisions, because their plan, having no plan, has not worked for our people. You know, it's like saying we should extend the mortgage, buy more new items, put more on the credit card, get more HPs, and then go and ask the boss to pay us less salary and less wages to pay for these things. These people inherited over here government net debt of zero. Do you know when that had happened last in New Zealand? Never. From 1864, when we started having government, to the Clark-Cullen government, there had never been net debt of zero, and that's what they inherited over there on that side of the house. They inherited the lowest unemployment in the world on the other side of the house. They have ruined both figures, and they get up here in this chamber and try and argue that nothing else can be done, there is no alternative, and the 68,000 people who are out of work, it is their fault. They say, oh, Labor only created jobs by hiring people in the private sector. Is that how 68,000 people have been added to the dole queue since the last election? 68,000 people extra, all coming from the public sector? I do not think so. I think they are not aware of what they're doing. And, sir, it's in education where you see this party opposite making bad choices for our country. Education is in a mess. Cuts in early childhood education this week and last week, hitting families having to pay more per week per child. The best single start we can give any young New Zealander is a quality public education, investing in our people to make sure that they can reach their potential, unleashing them for a big, brave world in which they can, as an individual, achieve and be the best that they can be. And over there they have a timid view. They believe in cuts. They believe early childhood education is babysitting. I want to tell the National Party something. Parents are involved as volunteers at primary school as well. So under the logic we're hearing from the National Party, that because parents and grandparents are involved as volunteers in early childhood, you only need to have 80% qualified staff, we might as well only have 80% qualified staff in primary school. When the Rugby World Cup comes along later this year, we would never say, let's only have 12 qualified professional All Blacks and 3 really interested avid fans of rugby to help them out to the 15. We want 100% qualified All Blacks to win the Rugby World Cup later this year, and we should have 100% qualified staff working with parents and grandparents to start making sure kids get the best start at age 3 and 4 if we want to make this country the cleverest it can be. They're not interested in that. They are babies. They see it as babysitting. They're putting those costs on families. Prices are going up faster than wages possibly can, and that social wage is being broken. Education is going to be a big issue in this campaign because Labor's got a vision for a bright future.